So I want to dive into this interesting topic I've been discussing lately with a lot of naturals, with students that have done a lot of work and changed their lives in their dating area. And that question is really simple. Can dating and relationships become easy? Can you reach a point where your dating life and ultimately your relationship with your wife, girlfriend, or whoever can not just become easy, but can become awesome? It can become a major source of inspiration for you. And I personally believe you can. But it's a multifaceted discussion I've been having with people lately, and I want to dive into that discussion with you right now. So let's get started. But before we do, I want to invite you to like, subscribe, and share, and make sure to put comments in the video because those comments really help other people grow. They help other people to build a discussion that helps them to change their lives, and I really appreciate that. So let's dive in. Can dating and relationships become easy? And the short answer to that is hell yes. You can reach a point where you kind of flow with dating and relationships. You almost know what's going to happen before it happens. You begin to see, it's like you can see into the future with your partner, with your woman. And you can start to understand where she's coming from, how she's feeling, why she's thinking the way she is. And it gives you a huge advantage. I think that's part one, when you begin to understand women so deeply and what motivates them, this emotional thread that motivates them, this emotional energy that drives them, especially when they're feminine. If you're doing your job, you're polarizing them into their feminine and they're going to become more feminine. Then it becomes more obvious why they're acting the way they are and what they're going to do. But there's another part to it too. And I think this is the bigger part. And it's when you begin to change. You see, a lot of guys, including myself, a lot of men, including myself, we come to this work very insecure. We come to this work with a little bit of an imposter syndrome going on about how we feel about ourselves with women. We come to this work wanting to get women to feel really good about ourselves. We come to this work thinking that if we get enough sex, we get enough women, we score enough that we'll repair that part inside of ourselves. But we disguise it as, I just want to go have fun, man. And I think there's nothing wrong with going out and exploring sex and sexuality if you've never done that. But you got to remember, if you're doing it just to get validation, you're doing it just to get a sense of feeling important to the world, to the women around you, that's never going to end. That's going to be a permanent drug addiction that could go your whole entire life. And what you're going to find from that place of being, that your dating life can be very challenging. You see, from that place of being, if you're very needy inside, you're very insecure inside, you've got an imposter syndrome about being a man that's good with women. And don't take that personal because I definitely had that. I was really messed up in that area. Then what happens is all your insecurities get projected onto the women that you meet, the women you actually choose. You see, early on when I was dating and working on this area of my life, at first I wasn't getting anywhere. And then I started to meet women. And I remember falling in love right away. This beautiful violin player. And I was nuts about her. And I blew that within a month or two because what happened was that was such a good relationship for me that within 1 month, I couldn't take it anymore. I just didn't feel deserving. When she wasn't around, I kept thinking about who she with. Why is she still with me? Is there some other guy she likes better? And I couldn't understand that she actually liked me because she was giving, she was loving, she was sweet. I wanted to be around her all the time. So I quickly blew that up and I destroyed that whole relationship to the point that she didn't even talk to me for a year. And that's a whole nother story. But then another thing that happened, I started dating more and more after that. And I started saying, who's in front of me? I'm just going to date. I need to go out on a lot of dates to work through this insecurity. Now, of course, there was about 6 months of healing in there. And then I dove back in. Now, as I met women one after another and I started dating them, I started having sex with them, I noticed there was a lot of push and pull in the relationship. There was a lot of my insecurities were meeting their insecurities. There was a lot of I wanted to have control and power. I wanted to get to sex right away so we get past this because women are the gatekeepers to sex and men are the gatekeepers to relationships. And I was taught by an early coach that if I get to sex right away, that gives me all the power. So I wanted all this power. And I wanted to feel confident around the women. And then I wanted to find another woman and another woman. And I wanted all these women in my life. And it was really all about two things, control and validation. I wanted the power and I wanted the validation. And what that set up for me was really interesting. I started meeting lots of women that had matching insecurities. I realized it took a while. It took years of dating these women, saying women are difficult, women are hard to be with, to realize that the part of me that wanted control, I was also a nice guy, what my old teacher called an inverted narcissist, and I was mainly dating extroverted narcissists, was constantly dancing this dance with the women, was constantly looking for a woman to dance this dance of control and struggle with. And I found I didn't want to be with any one woman too long. I quickly wanted to move on to another woman, or I'd lose interest in sex. Most women were chasing me for sex. And it was a really interesting period of my life, but I couldn't understand why any man, and hear this, would want to be in a long-term relationship. They just drain you of your resources. They're tiring. They want your attention. It's a lot of work, but we do want sex. We do want to cuddle. I did want to cuddle. I did want to have him there. But then, I got to take him out. And there was this whole sense of this energy going on for me. And I couldn't understand. And it's funny, I didn't even reference back to the violin player, because the violin player that I dated, I wanted to be around her all the time. But all these other women, I didn't. And what I found after a period of dating, after a number of years of dating, I began to see that I was picking women that matched my insecurity, and that's why I wasn't enjoying them. They were narcissists, and I was trying to prove that I was good enough to handle them. They were super insecure and needy, and if I took care of them, I felt good about myself. But then I also got tired. I lost interest. And it just, in the end, didn't work. Now, was that problem, I want you to hear this question, was that problem the women, or was that me? Well, you could say, well, all these women they had all these weird things going on. Well, I had weird things going on too. That's why we worked. That's why we were together. You see, an extroverted narcissist needs an inverted narcissist to be in a relationship with, right? And so I began to look at this a little deeper. And I remember as time went on and I started to meet different women, and I wouldn't commit to relationships, or I'd only commit to open relationships, and I was having sex with different women, and knowing that if I got into a committed relationship, I felt claustrophobic and shut down. As I started to go through that cycle, I guess is what I'm trying to say here, I began to see that something just wasn't right. The sex was okay. I think it covered up something inside of me, a pain that was inside of me, of loneliness and of hurt. But in reality, none of the women were really feeling that void. They all filled a little distraction. They gave me a little piece of something, but there was work. Every one of them was work. And I was always setting these boundaries, which then created more work, because the more I set the boundaries, the more they wanted to push on them. And there's nothing wrong with boundaries. My boundaries were coming from insecurities. See, solid boundaries that come from a place of win-win for both of you, that's a whole nother game, right? But my boundaries were coming from win-lose. I need to protect me. I need to put you in your place. And I remember having several women I was dating, and there was one night that this woman canceled on me. She was going to come over. And I immediately kind of started to call other women to find a different woman to come over. And then I realized as I was sitting there that I was feeling anxious because I wasn't finding a woman to come over that night. And I began to feel like, what do I do? I started to get nervous and anxious, and I realized, damn, I don't know how to enjoy me. How am I ever supposed to enjoy a woman, let alone draw a woman in that really is open and caring and loving? How am I supposed to create that balance in a relationship? So that's when I began the journey of learning to love myself. I actually ended it with every woman I was with at that time. And I began a journey of healing my mind, healing my body, dating myself, started taking myself on ski trips, and started taking myself up to by myself. I wouldn't even bring guy friends. And I would learn to enjoy my own company. And this was really good, because after that 4 months to a year, I don't know how long it was. I used to think it was 4 months, but I think it actually extended it a lot longer, was over. At first, I had a little trouble bringing women back in. There was this resistance inside of me because I was kind of content. For the first time in my life, I really didn't need distractions. And Then I suddenly decided to bring some women in, and I met this one woman. She became my girlfriend, actually. I met several women, actually, and they were awesome. They were so much more fun. I still didn't want to be with them all the time. I'd still lose interest in sex after a while, and I wanted to have 4 or 5 girlfriends. But I noticed the women that were coming into my life were much more sweet, giving, and loving. So I ended up falling for one of them, this beautiful Latina, and I ended up in a relationship with her for 3 years. And we ended up in an open relationship ultimately because I was claustrophobic. And again, I was losing. And here's this beautiful woman in front of me, and I'm losing the desire for sex. And she was gorgeous, man. And I just didn't understand it still at the time. And now looking back, what was really happening was another part of me. I had moved from this guy that was constantly needing women for attention to a guy who learned to be happy on his own. And when I brought women in, I would go into my avoidance strategy. I would become, if you guys know the relationship types, secure, attached, dismissive, avoidant, and there's 4 of them, disorganized or fearful avoidant, and anxious attached. I was going into like almost a fearful avoidant, dismissive avoidant kind of tendency. I would get this vulnerability hangover. If I got too close to a woman or she wanted to get too close to me, I'd want to shut down on her. I'd want to pull away. I'd want to end that relationship or at least take a break from her for a bit and then come back to her. And again, setting all these boundaries so that I felt safe, I thought was normal. And I went through that after a while. I started to really take a look, and when I woke up to that I need to heal that. And so after that 3-year relationship ended, there was a period of time I just dated a lot, had fun. And then suddenly I decided to start healing that. I started to understand it better. Somebody brought it to the surface. I think you're a fearful avoidant, man. And I started to do a lot of work on this avoidant tendency. I started to see it in other people. It actually gave me a superpower because I started to realize the women I liked the most were dismissive avoidants. Here I was, a fearful avoidant, and I would chase these dismissive avoidants because they were safe. Think about this. This is really interesting. If I dated a dismissive avoidant, I didn't even know I was doing this subconsciously. They would come in, they'd show interest, they'd flirt, but they'd disappear on me, and I'd never need to really do much work to get space from them, to get them out of my life. And as I started to understand that, and I started to understand how dismissive avoidants think, I started to just talk to them like dismissive avoidants. And I started to realize it was almost like this weird superpower where I got these women that just show up once in a while and then they disappear and then they come back and disappear. And I was like, just don't push them. And it was a pretty cool thing. But I still realized that there was a big part of me that was wounded. That's why I was doing that. And I started to take a deeper look at that. And by the way, if I could get a dismissive avoidant to come forward, and that again stroked my ego, right? Because dismissive avoidants are notorious for running away with their vulnerability hangovers. And again, it was a lot of stroking my ego, which created tons of work. We go back to the title of this video. Can this really be easy? And as I began to heal all of that, start to really let people in and start to set boundaries that are win-win, that really support her and me, to help her to be the best and me to be the best. And I stopped having attachments and aversions to relationship, connection, to her being sad, to her being angry, to be her being hurt. And I started to just flow with that. And that was a lot of the revealing process embodiment work I do. I started to clean up the whole way I saw relationships, letting people in and loving people and starting to learn to love everybody. Something weird started to happen. I started to realize that I didn't need to set all these crazy boundaries to protect myself, that I could just let people in. And if I need to set a boundary, I can set a boundary if they're taking advantage of me or using me. But for the most part, if I'm just loving and open because I have no attachments and aversions, I can see the right thing to do. I don't take it personal when she's sad or hurt or needs to pull away. I can love her when she's pulling away, and I can love her when she's coming forward, because to me, I don't have any attachments or aversions to her pulling away. And I don't have attachments or aversions to her being angry. When she gets angry, I can just love her and open back up. Or if I need to set a boundary while she's angry, I can do that. But I do it in the most loving way possible. And what ended up happening was quite fascinating. people started getting more drawn to me because I was calm under pressure. I was non-reactive. I was free from outcome. And that's when the relationships really started to become easy. If I had known this in the beginning, and if I could really see this, because I was like in the middle of it, like a thick fog, and you can't find your way out. But if I'd known this in the beginning, what I would have done is gone right for freedom from outcome, freedom from attachment to outcome, not unattached, but this sense that I'm unattached to the outcome, so I can be fully with you right now with all your emotions and love you just the way you are, and then make a decision based on that. What I began to realize is that if I was giving an open right from the front with women, maybe I do take them to a nice dinner. Maybe I take them out and I just watch how they react. And if a woman is manipulative, she gets greedy really fast because I'm so open and so quick to flow with her that she tries to get more out of me. And I immediately know she's a gold digger. I'm not interested. Thank you. And I can just move on. It saves so much time, right? Because if I sit there and I stay digging in with her, and try to play this game of I'm going to give you a little, you give me a little, and I'm going to buy this for you, and I'm going to hold back here, and I'm going to watch how you act, and this dance of a game. What ends up happening is 6 months later, as she dances off how you're dancing off of her, you begin to realize, oh, you know what? She's a gold digger because you didn't open up fully. You couldn't see her full personality. She calculated off of you, and you calculated off of her. I hope that makes sense. But by opening up right away, and her not seeing you trying to play these games, her real personality comes to the surface so fast. And that was probably one of the biggest shifts. By being unattached from outcome, I began to see quickly the real personality of the person in front of me because my heart was open. I was enjoying them. I didn't need them to be a certain way to enjoy them because with an open heart like that, I can enjoy almost anybody. And they can even be an asshole and I can be like, cool, and we don't have to hang out again, but it was awesome meeting you because I'll be curious, I'll be open, really happiness is a choice. It's not like you need something to make you happy. You can learn to be happy and joyful for no reason and then just give that away to people. And what happens is you just start to see everything. The less attachments and aversions you have, the more you see the dynamics of the person in front of you, the relationship in front of you. And that's how my life began to change in this area. And I started to say, can relationships and dating be easy? And I personally believe, yes, they can, and they're meant to be. When you heal all your wounds, a whole new type of woman partner will come into your life. And it's just vibration. Like when you vibrate in a free space, somebody's going to come in a caring, loving space that's caring and loving, that wants to be there with you, that wants to really connect with you at a deep level, that wants to be your feminine while you be their masculine, wants to dance with you, wants to listen. And I saw this years ago with dating coaches. I remember this dating coach called Disco. And way back in the days when I was with Pickup 101, and he said, in the beginning, I couldn't get women at all. I'd approach, I'd say hi, and they wouldn't say anything back. Then later, I would approach, and I would have to go banter lines, tease, push, pull, do all this stuff to get him attracted, to get a date. And that would eventually work. I got better and better at it. But as I got better and better, and I got more confident, and I got more calm, I walked up and said hi, hello, just like I did in the beginning. And it worked. And that's exactly what happens. As you go through this long journey of learning all this bullshit, and you don't realize all along the way you're working on your insecurities, your fears, your doubts, your worries, your attachments, your aversions inside. And when you reach a point that your embodiment is really solid, you're open-hearted, you're grounded, you know who you are, you love yourself, you're giving that love away, and you're no longer trying to take from the world, dating becomes easy. Relationships become easier. You start to see the truth of what's in front of you, and you won't put up with the bullshit anymore. You just go to the next one because there's plenty of people out there. And life gets better. But here's the awesome part. You don't just get a great relationship. Every part of your life changes. Every part. Money, health. If you apply these principles to everything will change. I think social skills, letting people in, learning to care about people, letting go of all those attachments and aversions is the most important thing a person can do in their lives. Not just a man, a person. Because as you do that, you're raising your vibration. You're becoming a higher conscious being, because what lowers your consciousness is all these attachments, these aversions, these stories, these programs that are pushing and pulling on you all day. And as those go away and you begin to let go and you start to just really be the real you under all of that, that's when life becomes super giving. So I'm going to end on this quote. Lester Levinson, the guy who created releasing originally, said that releasing, letting go, revealing process is my version of it, is about getting all the push and pull out of you so the world stops pushing and pulling back. And if you're working on your dating and relationships, it's the same thing. You get all the push and pull out of you, the women stop pushing and pulling back. And that's powerful when you think about it. So with all that said, hopefully you enjoyed this video, got value out of it. Definitely comment below. I love those comments. It helps everybody to grow. Definitely like the video, subscribe, notifications, all that stuff. And remember, only the courageous really live. See you in the next video.